What's up, you guys? We are here for our weekly energy oracle forecast, where we're just going to take a look at the week ahead and see what kind of energetic weather we will be living in, what kind of spiritual weather we'll be having. This is the Oracle of Oddities deck that I usually use, but it's a new edition. So there's a lot of the old cards that we're used to seeing, but then a lot of new ones too. So thought I'd switch it up and use this deck tonight. So from the Oracle of Oddities, we've got Harmony, followed by Guide, followed by Life. Wow, love it so far. And let's just go ahead and pull, although I usually take them slow, one card at a time, but those all came out together. So we'll just go ahead and pull them all, and then we'll take them one at a time. And connect. I love it. So we'll start with Harmony. In usual fashion, Saturday night Secret Teachings of Jesus episodes are always like I don't plan them ahead of time. I sit down before I turn the camera on, and we might be like in a certain gospel, but I don't necessarily go in order always. Sometimes I do. Sometimes we jump around. So there's never like a real solid strategy. And last night, and every single week, the lesson from like Saturday night's episode ends up aligning with the coming week's Zohar portion, which is the commentary on this week's Torah portion. I never know these things in advance. This is a total coincidence because the Torah lesson doesn't get released until I see it Sunday morning. And so when I'm doing this Saturday night, I don't know what's coming up the week ahead. I haven't spent enough years paying attention to which portion comes at what time of year. It's all still new to me because I'm also hearing these Bible books in the Hebrew name, not necessarily the English name that I'm used to. So I see that there's a pattern, that there's, these readings that happen throughout the cycle of 365 days every year. But I don't have them memorized. I wouldn't know ahead of time. So last night's reading lined up with this week's reading in the Torah portion, which is wild. So we started the Gospel of Thomas in the Secret Teachings of Jesus series. I've been delving into the Gnostic Gospels over the last few years, late Saturday nights. And so we covered the first 3 verses there. And basically the Gospel of Thomas is a gospel that is not like a narrative story structure, like scene work, like for instance, the Gospel of Mary, there was a lot of dialogue. It was like a scene playing out. Whereas the Gospel of Philip were these like portions of like cryptic text that were things that Jesus talked about, or images and parables that Jesus gave. And it gave you those isolated portion by portion to like meditate on. The Gospel of Thomas is very similar to the Gospel of Philip, only instead of having like a paragraph of like a whole sort of parable in front of you, it's just these cryptic sayings and statements. And so they're just listed. And the Gospel of Thomas doesn't focus on necessarily Jesus's divinity or the crucifixion or the resurrection, but rather, or even the miracles that he performed, but just rather the literal, strictly the teachings and the things that he would say. So I thought that was really interesting. So it lined up, I can't remember right now, I'm blanking which thing was that we were talking about, but all 3 portions ended up playing into what my teacher Eitan was talking about this morning in the Torah portion. So I was like, oh my God, so wild. So the point in the Torah portion this week was talking about the mixed multitude. And what that was when Moses went to Mount Sinai, like he wanted to save everybody. And so he brought a lot of the Babylonians along too, and people that weren't necessarily like the Israelites, the Jewish people. So God was like, Moses, you should probably leave the mixed multitude for now. They will eventually do their correction. They'll come along later, but right now we need to focus on your immediate community. The people who have readiness and consciousness to be in unity and take these steps and move forward and take on this consciousness and this faith together. And then they will catch on later, but we need the group now to be as unified and strong in our mission as possible. Well, Moses was a Pisces, and so he was giving, and he was wanted to include everyone. He was like the most sharing of all the signs, right? The Pisces is always wanting to self-sacrifice and give and include everybody else. You know, they're the Jesus fish, right? They're the Christ consciousness in a way, and they're the most developed of all the zodiac signs because they're the very last ones. So they're the old wise zodiac sign. So Moses wanted to be good and caring and sharing and righteous and make sure that everybody was included. I don't want to leave anybody behind. Everybody's coming. And so he insisted that the mixed multitude come, and God was like, all right, much to my chagrin, I'm going to oblige you in this, but you will live to regret this. And so that during the time of Mount Sinai, when they had completed the tabernacle, they had to have it completed by, I think, the 25th of Tislev, which is it's during Hanukkah. But so they had to rush and have the tabernacle completed for this date, this deadline. But then it was months. It was actually the 1st of Nisan, which was April 1st, when the zodiac begins again on the very first day of the new year, according to the zodiac. That's when God came and occupied the temple. It wasn't before that. So there was this hiccup that happened in the meantime. And at first, when they'd completed the tabernacle, everybody's on Mount Sinai, everything is wonderful, they're all in unity, they're all in harmony. But then Moses went up into the mountain and left the people on their own. And they were like, I don't understand. Why isn't God coming into the tabernacle? They started to want to see, they wanted something they could hear, feel, taste, touch. They wanted physical manifestation. They wanted material evidence. They wanted a God that they could bring their complaints to in the flesh. And so during the time before they started getting restless and disgruntled, before that they were in total harmony. And so during that time, they were immortal beings. They were experiencing all of these like supernatural miracles, healings, like everything was in like perfection, like it was in the Garden of Eden once more. Right? We were almost elevated into like our almost like divine selves at that point because everyone was in unity together. But then when division came and started to create separation and hostility and doubt, then they fell apart and they became cursed. But what all of this like disruption and division led to was they broke down in a moment of temptation, and they built a golden statue of the calf, and they worshiped the calf as a tribute to Baal. And so they did this sin against God, and that cursed them, but it took away all of that miraculous, that like they were living in that realm of miracles, like the miracle flow, the divine flow was there. because they were sharing affinity with the Creator, and they were all in harmony, and they all were in unity, and they were all as one. And so that unity, that harmony, was elevating them spiritually, but also elevating them from their physical limitations as well. And so the point is that yes, it's not like you're abandoning people and leaving them behind, but there is a need to curate the people who are closest to you. And if they have hard feelings or bad intentions toward you, or they're like gossiping about you, or jealous, or they have evil eye against you, or they have ill motives, right? It's like you're not forced and obliged to keep those people in your life. They are the mixed multitude. They're going to ruin it for everyone. The mixed multitude, Moses insisted they come, and God was like, you're going to regret this. And Moses was like, God, you should be nicer. Be more inclusive. And he brought the mixed multitude. They caused division, strife, and they ruined paradise for everyone. Had they established their covenant with God and their religion and been strong in it themselves and figured out the way and became established, and then later use that unity and that influence to then invite the consciousness or share the consciousness with the Babylonians and invite them in, then they might have had a different sort of transitional period, and the Babylonians might have adopted and embraced the faith fully. However, they rushed it, and the Babylonians did not have the vessel to commit to this covenant and this consciousness yet, because they weren't ready to give up their own, what they were used to, what they knew, with their own consciousness. So they kind of spoiled the whole thing for everyone. That happens in our lives many times. You think about like being at a workplace and everybody's all good, but then there's like that one freaking thorn that spreads like this toxicity and like negativity through the whole workplace. And maybe they're not like a malicious gossiper or a plotting schemer. Like I've worked with many of these people. It's very fun working in the restaurant industry. Lots of people coming through. But then there could be someone who's just sort of like an energy vampire, and they're the kind of narcissist that plays the victim all the time, and that keeps everybody, they're not contributing. It's like that keeps everyone in strife. And then it throws a wrench into the entire workplace. And then maybe this person, even their laziness, like affects the business, right? And it's like, you're trying to give this person an opportunity and a chance, but they're poisoning the business and they're creating destruction in their wake. And so it's like, it's ruining the unity and harmony for everyone. And the more unity and harmony in an environment, the more blessings can flow, the more protection, the more prosperity, the more well-being. So it's not to say that you want to exclude anyone ever, but you want to be realistic about who you are spending your personal, intimate time with, right? Not everybody is owed your presence and your time. You can not have hard feelings towards someone, wish them the best, pray for them, be friendly and kind and warm, but you don't have to have them close to you, right? And this has been a struggle for me too, with people in, say my life, I struggle with my relationship with my dad. And to a certain degree, I have felt so not obligated, but I felt all the weight of the pressure of trying to make that a good relationship, doing all the heavy lifting when he's never shown any interest. And every time I put myself out there at the behest of my mom who's pushing me to or something, or I hear a spiritual lesson that makes me feel like, oh, nothing's gonna be right until I make my relationship, harmonious with my dad. And it's like every time I put myself out there and I'm crushed because he has no interest, and he's insensitive on top of it. And so, I finally, there's been finally so many events happening recently that it is undeniable that it is more destructive to have him nearby than it is to just let sleeping dogs lie and let him go on his own way and let him figure it out over time when holiday after holiday comes up and I'm not available, right? And so I have wrestled with this, and it's so crazy because this morning this set me free. Because my teacher was like, if some influence is bringing destruction into your inner world, into your circle, into your environment, like, you're not forced to have them and keep them and include them, because they're creating destruction and they are creating harm. So it's not like, it's practicing discernment and good judgment. And I think too that a lot of us, especially with all of the stuff coming out in the files and in, abuse in like religious systems and institutions and all of these stories coming out in the news, it's like we are remembering that culture of evangelicalism that always wants to skip right over the accountability and just accept people and give them forgiveness, and they're trying, they're struggling, and it's like, okay, well, you're always making excuses for these perpetrators and these people who do these things, and they're just propped up in their folly and they never actually change. And it's like this culture teaches you this ideology that it's like, well, it's your fault, you need to be more forgiving, you need to be more compassionate, you need to be more understanding. And yet these people are coming in and they're predators and they're preying upon people and they're harming people. And we're just like, yes, just keep doing it. We just have to keep forgiving you. And it's like, no, that is not the case. You don't have to let the wolves in. You can wish the wolves well, let them be on their way. But if it's like you have to have that, this isn't about like, oh, I don't care much for this person, his personality gets on my nerves, and being over dramatic and then, making it out to be like worse than it is, and then using that as an excuse to reject someone. That's not the same thing. It's honest, it's discernment, it's wisdom, right? So the mixed multitude, harmony. If we're considering that in our life this week, look for ways that you can inject more harmony into your life. And how can you be an influence of weaving and cultivating more harmony between you and your community? And if there is something that is bringing discord, separation, and division, looking at yourself, am I being a destroyer? Am I having destroyer consciousness? Am I being destructive? Am I creating separation? I mean, we all do it at some point. So practicing that awareness and bringing that into our consciousness and self-awareness and discipline. Okay, catch myself when I am being a source of division, separation, negativity, but also recognizing when I'm leaving the door open for that kind of influence to come in to my life and in my circles and in my community, right? Even when Jesus was sending out his disciples, at first he was like, the Gentiles aren't ready for this yet. So I want to start with our people, with our tradition, to reform Judaism. And we will share this gospel with our own people first, and then we'll take it to the Gentiles. That was the plan because of the mixed multitude, right? Because of what happened, again, like at Mount Sinai. It's like you don't want people that don't fully adopt the consciousness to start getting in there. Like, for instance, and before I get into this example, it's interesting because the people who were actually most receptive first to Jesus's message and really jumped on it were the Gentiles. So sometimes things are surprising and they can take a detour, an unexpected detour. But another example of this is like protecting your consciousness and your mission and your a baby project while it's still fragile and young, protecting it from the mixed multitude or consciousness, mixing consciousness that doesn't really mesh with your consciousness, taking on not foreign, but an invading consciousness, like a infiltrating consciousness that dilutes the purity of the truth coming through. For instance, here's a very easy, simple example. I used to write screenplays, not professionally, but I would come up with the ideas, and I wanted to maybe do it professionally, but it's quite an undertaking, and I don't know. It was something that I was really interested in early in my years, and I didn't want to sell my scripts because I wanted to make the movies. And so anyway, at the time when I was in the writing process a lot, I would be tempted to want to talk to people about my ideas and talk to them about the stories that I'm writing because I was excited about them. And 100% of the time, nearly, that person that you're telling your idea to, instead of them taking in your story and then commenting on that, and they would suddenly be I don't know, a Hollywood critic and be you know what, actually, I would add this into the story. They always want to change your story. They always want to change your plot. They're always you know what, actually, wouldn't it be cool if they did this instead? And you're well, no, you don't know anything about the character's background, so that wouldn't really fit with the story, wouldn't be true. So you see what I'm saying? People want to come in and they're part of the mixed multitude, right? They're not they don't have the consciousness that you do. And when you expose your stuff to that, then they're going to taint it, right? Because every time I'd be well, not every time, but sometimes I would consider maybe or not even, I've never been that porous. I wasn't yeah, maybe I'll consider that idea. But I got tired of just shooting people down and just being no, this isn't your story. I'm not taking your idea. You didn't write this. You didn't go through all the trouble. You just want the glory in the moment right now of hearing yourself talk, having the satisfaction, but you're not invested. You're not putting your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. So learning, okay, I'm going to protect my ideas. I'm not telling people until they're finished to protect the story. Energetically, metaphysically, it is suggested that when you are manifesting something or wanting to call something in or creating something, it's, or say early stages of pregnancy, you don't want to talk about something too early on before it's sturdy, before it's got some roots and it's got some legs and it's taking off. When it's in its most early vulnerable stage, it's very susceptible to energetic influence that can dry it up, destruct it, send it off sideways, like put it in the under the gaze of evil eye, whatever it is. But it's loose lips sink ships for a reason. So prioritizing harmony, making it a point to want to cultivate harmony. I mean, look, we're in World War III right now. Obviously, we see the destruction of mixed multitude consciousness and what devastation that causes when it's a destructive force of evil. And so all of us on earth are craving harmony. We are craving unity. We're craving oneness. We just want to do some gardening and eat some not poisoned food, and maybe go on a trip sometime and love the people we love, and like laugh at some comedians. Like, we want harmony. We don't want machine guns in our face. Like, we don't want this violence. We don't want this greed. We don't want this overconsumption. We don't want this overkill. We don't want the planet destroyed. We don't want oil refineries blown up and having oil spill out into the streets and rain down from the sky. Like, we don't want this. We want harmony. So the more we can cultivate harmony and unity in small pockets, it gets contagious and it spreads. Just like the division and the hatred spread, harmony spreads as well. It's like those little things that do that. You can get them all going at different times, but eventually they all start going like this. I don't know what they're called, but y'all know what I'm talking about. You know these things, but the things that hang and they like swing and they have a rhythm, and sometimes they click, but other times they don't. But like those things, if you get them all crazy and going at different times and they're all erratic, eventually they will synchronize and they will sync up. So we can create synchronization. We can create synchronicity. We can create harmony. When you hit a tuning fork, right? Instruments that are out of tune, they want harmony. They want to be in tune. That's what they're yearning towards. Their tendency is to being tuned. So if there's a pitch struck and it stays, that note sustains, then the instrument can find its way to harmonizing and tuning itself to that frequency, that sustained frequency. So too, I talk about our energetic signature. When we can get into a state of very stable vibration with our consciousness, with our energy, with our emotion, with our intention, with our self-control, like when we get that kind of stability in our aura and our presence, that energy walking into a room shifts the energy of the room. You can influence someone without even speaking. If you know how to master your energy like that and you can keep it that sustained, then you're the influential person in the room, because most people are like all over the place. They're flipping channels. Their vibration is up 1 second and down the next. It's very easy to be thrown off or excited or this or that. But if you are sustained, you're sending a clear signal. The signal's not cutting in and out, right? So that is powerful. Just consistency and stability is so influential, so powerful. So I think that letting harmony guide us, letting that lead when we're discerning, okay, from this, from that, what adds more to the harmony in the situation? What's going to add more unity? What's going to give more growth? And what is going to yield greater fruit? The creator has creator consciousness, and that consciousness is overflow of sharing, of being a light, of being a positive creative presence of love and goodness. And so that is creator consciousness. The creator, God, shares. The light is just always emanating. It's eternal and it's always sharing, and it's never like taking or asking, in return. It's just unconditional sharing, unconditional sharing, unconditional sharing. Does the sun say, all right, y'all haven't pleased me today. I'll be in my chambers if you want me? No, the sun is always sharing. It's always shining. The sun shines its light equally, no matter what. So too is the light of the creator. So that unconditional sharing consciousness is like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to shine regardless. I'm going to be the vessel that is the ambassador of the lamppost of the creator. And that's going to be unconditional. It's not going to be based on whether or not I am feeling like I got my way today. I mean, this is not I don't have that level of self-control. I'm trying. I have a temper. I have frustration. Like, I struggle. I'm a wretch, but we try. And so if we're letting the creator consciousness guide us, then we have to recognize, okay, what is destroyer consciousness? How do I see that? Sometimes it's obvious, but my teacher earlier in the morning pointed out that even just doing something with the consciousness of expecting something in return can be destroyer consciousness. It's like taker consciousness. It's not in alignment with the creator, right? So we want to, that's why when like marketing people or motivational people are like, why, get in touch with your why. Why are you really doing this? Because if it's just, I want some money, then that's not a good, that's usually not a very magnetic why. It is for, I guess, the most powerful evil monsters in the world, because they've already stepped on everyone. They didn't care what it took to get to the top. They just took what they wanted. But for those of us who are not wanting to rot in the pits of hell, we are wanting to become like the creator. We want to be like God. We want to emulate sharing and love and improvements and beautifying the planet and taking care of one another, right? So it can be a fine line with being preoccupied with like lack or money, or it's like when you have a choice as a person that owns a business, say, do I take the cheap road that's going to hurt the customer, or do I consider the greater good, the impact that's going to have on humanity, on the environment? Look at AI. No care about how it's going to impact humanity or the environment. It's like they're like, it'll give us finally our freedom to do what we really love. Well, AI has taken over the feed of social media, so the artists are being buried. So people aren't really getting to do their art like we were promised. AI is taking our just basic jobs, the functional, essential jobs. And so then it's AI is taking our jobs. It's kind of like smothering the artists, and then it's destroying the earth, destroying the environment. And then things are getting more expensive because they're like, things are going up because of AI. It's like, so you've taken our jobs and now you have free labor, but somehow that's costing us more, and it's destroying the environment and taking all of our clean water. And not even using gray water, it's taking the fresh water that we can't replace. And it's destroying our air that we also need to live and can't replace. Like, what? So letting harmony and goodness be our guide and leaning into that hardcore, it's going to yield life. This is what life depends on this planet. I mean, look at the footage of the war right now and the black sky above Tehran. Like, like they're hell bent on just like destroying the whole world, like where we have an unlivable planet. Like, and they're like, oil's already going up. You know what? Let's target their oil refineries. I mean, we fucked the world up all around us from every direction. Let's just keep going. Let's see how bad it can be, right? So we have to do everything that we can to save and to promote and to support life and thriving on earth and human interests, not corporate interests, not billionaire interests, not satanic cabal monster beast interests. We are not here for the interests of the beast. We are here for the interest of the Creator, of beauty, of humanity. So choosing harmony, leaning into harmony, making it our business to cultivate harmony, and watching ourselves vigilantly for, catching ourselves when we're going into that divisive separation mode, taking what's in it for me kind of thinking. We've got to let that go and choose. Let goodness and generosity and human dignity be our guide. And that this is to protect life itself, but this will generate more life. Whereas I wish I had the Gospel of Thomas out right now. What was that verse? It was, hold on, let me just grab it. Because it talks about life and death. Oh, my foot. Okay. Ow, my foot. It's been really stiff, and then I'm sitting on it, and then when I put weight on it again, it's like, Okay. The Gospel of Thomas. Which one was it? Oh, yeah. And he said, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. And so it's like understanding that the whole point of all those sayings, they're all basically circling back to loving our neighbor as ourselves, being in harmony, being in unity, being like the Creator as much as we can be, loving one another. That is a recipe for continue like everlasting life, like life eternal. And then even in this limited incarnation, fruitful, prosperous, fulfilling life, right? But our darkness, our ignorance, our determination for destruction, or just self-interests, or our ignorance, or our lack of awakening our soul, it sends us through these cycles of reincarnation and going through the process again and again and again, and the process of transformation. Me and the person who were commenting on last night's video this morning were like kind of exchanging ideas on the observation that if you get the lesson, there's no need for the lesson, the process, right? Like say during a Mercury retrograde, that the ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is, that's very tempting, that always comes back around and wants some attention, and they get you all hooked again, and then you're like, I'll never do this again. Like, hold on, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. If they were to come back and you were like, no, like every time you go back, it like you get back together and then it's fine for a little bit and then it starts to fall apart again, and then your life starts to fall apart and everything starts to get miserable and you go through this pain, and then you break up, and then you meet someone again and they're a different person, but they have the same patterns, and then you start going through that again, and it's like, oh, you see the signs, you failed the test, you got to go through the process again and again and again. And it's like you're not a failure, like no, like God's not judging you. It's just like, okay, well, when you get it, like I'll let you take the test again. But when we need to stop taking the test is like when we can just walk away and not meet this moment. Like if I have a guy who's waving a bunch of red flags that is very tempting, I can justify myself into going out with him and ignoring the red flags. But then that's where the process comes in. It's like, oh, now I have to learn this lesson because now this is going to disintegrate and it's going to be painful and I'm going to have to learn my lesson and I'm going to have to reflect on all of this and unpack the damage that was done, and the cycle repeats itself, right? Until I finally get it. And I can see those red flags coming from a mile away and I can say, no, I'll pass. Thank you. I'd rather not go through the lesson. Lesson learned. No need for a difficult process, right? But sometimes our soul needs to be awakened. It needs to see those shortcomings within ourselves. It needs the process to bring it all out, to unpack it, and to deal with. But how many times we have to go through that process, and that lesson is up to us, right? Like if we can get that lesson quickly and stop repeating the same patterns, the lesson's learned, like no lesson, no more process needed, right? So when we understand the wisdom of truth, the truth of Christ, the Christ consciousness, and we can apply this correction to our soul and live by this consciousness, then it takes us out of the loop. Or in theory, it could, because we could see things coming before we trip ourselves into painful processes, painful cycles of lessons, learning lessons again and again and again. It's like you can get off the train if you just learn the lesson. So then we have connect as our final card. And so again, if we are learning from the mixed multitude, okay, who do we not want to connect with? Who is disrupting our harmony? Who do we have to say maybe no to, or, separate ourselves from certain, groups or mindsets or things that that aren't in alignment with our values, right? And I want to be careful about saying like separate ourselves from these people, because you don't want prejudice or judgment or like hatred and even more division. But like there are certain people that I wouldn't really hang out with because I don't share their values or their lifestyle, right? So learning, okay, who is in, but I will tell you this, I love my workplace because all of us are similar in like our kind of temperament in life and our kind of views of the world, and we're supportive of one another. We're all, creative and things like that, and we're all spiritual and we have faith and belief, and we get along well. So it's like, be conscious of who you're surrounding yourself with. Right. For instance, like a year ago, it was before things started getting really bad in Gaza. And it was I was seeing things about it, but it wasn't like the intensity of how it amped up and got like so intense all through the summer, or at least maybe that's just the exposure that finally made it through into the algorithm when we were all finally seeing it. And just before that, in the spring, I had this table, and I deduced from some clues that it was a Jewish family because they had on like Hebrew necklaces, and I think it was near Passover. So I was like, Hag Samek, and they were like, it threw them off guard because obviously I'm not like, I don't really give any obvious, I don't know. I don't think you could look at me and figure out like what my genetics are, my beliefs, my practices. Like, I think I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't think it's obvious, right? So they didn't know that I was a Judeo-Christian, that I was part Jewish, that, all of that. So they were kind of taken aback. And they're like, how do you know? Like, what makes you think that, we're... I was like, well, I noticed your Hebrew letters and I'm celebrating Passover. So I don't know if you guys were, but, I was like, what is they, And so then they warmed up and they're like, oh, okay, I see. All right, this is a friendly situation. And this is safe space. And so then I was just telling them, like, I had to teach myself, Judaism essentially. And I like stream from the Kabbalah Center and take classes, but I didn't have any like Jewish community around me. And they were like, oh, well, they were really taking me in under their wing, and they left me their card, and they were like, we go to Israel every 3 weeks. Like, you should like touch base if you ever need anything to do with all of that. And I was like, oh, wow. And it was really heartwarming because I was like, oh, no one's ever taken me in like that. And I've never been part of a group, and I've never been accepted and like part of like a culture or something. And, I was really excited at first, but it didn't take but a couple of minutes for me to be like, wait, somebody goes there like internationally, travels every 3 weeks. Like, how long is the trip? Like, you're coming back, you're just going straight back. And then I figured out, oh, I don't know if they're Zionists, but they're probably zealots. And I think this is it was a birthright trip. And I didn't really know about what really Zionists were until this past summer with all of the war and everything in Gaza. And I knew, I was like, okay, this is a little bit zealous, and I don't think that I should be getting involved. And this, country's in a war right now, so I definitely don't really want to go into a war zone, because I know my luck. I always get into these crazy circumstances. So I was just like, maybe I will be careful about who I just jump in, and be like, yeah, let's take an international trip together with a stranger, you know what I mean? Like, so even though I wanted this community and I saw things about these people that I was like, oh, I want to be part of your world in a way, I could see that in the deeper sense, they did not align with my consciousness, or they probably wouldn't down the line, because I don't abide by that kind of extremism, right? In Christianity either. I talk about evangelicalism all the time. It's where I came from, and it's another version of extremism. So I think like being awake and intentional with who we're curating our spaces with. And I don't want to sound anti-Semitic at all. I love Judaism. I love Jewish people. I want more of them in my life, obviously. But like, I don't want to get caught up in a group that's named and is a label, and we're for us and we're against them. Like, I don't want to participate in any of that, in any beliefs. I respect everyone, and I, feel like people are on their own paths and their own journeys, and it's not up to me to project or to, say one side has got all the answers and that side doesn't. That's not where I'm at. But I think that we have to have discernment and say, okay, is the mixed multitude sneaking in? Are people that don't have my consciousness or share my values sneaking in? Now, other than just people that we're connecting with, what about your own consciousness? Is the mixed multitude consciousness sneaking into your own mind? Right? Where are your own thoughts and feelings having a disconnect and a dissonance, and they're preventing you, like your thoughts and your feelings aren't aligning with your consciousness? Where is there a disconnect? Where are you coming from an unrealized motive that is kind of wanting, like, what's in it for me? Taker consciousness, selfish consciousness, right? I get there too sometimes, just in small ways. Like sometimes I just I get so tired, and I feel like, oh, I just want to veg out. I don't want to come home and create a video. But the thing is that it's always when it's like you're the most tired, that you're actually doing an act of sharing, that you have to come out of yourself and go out of your way. Then it's actually a sharing act. If it's not even, you're not even breaking a sweat, it barely counts, as an act of sharing anyway. So I think just being conscious of the thoughts that we're connecting with in our own mind, the feelings that we're cultivating and latching onto and cultivating in our own heart. Do those align with the consciousness that you want to cultivate and vote for in your mind, right? Even during all of these conflicts and these past couple of years with these warring groups of people all around, like the challenge has been to not develop sweeping judgment and prejudice of others, to try to take each person into individual consideration, while still understanding that a group ideology may not be something that I don't value. I don't agree with that. So I'm not going to jump in and immerse myself in that culture, but I can try to take people as they come in front of me and take each person on an individual basis and give them a chance to show who they are. But if they are not in alignment with that consciousness and they are a negative influence or a destructive influence, then I'm not forced to have them in my circle. Does that make sense? I hope that I haven't talked in circles. I hope I haven't said anything that sounds hateful or divisive. That's certainly the opposite of the point of the video. But I think that it's weird when it's the Moses complex. You want to bring everybody in. You want everybody to be included. And you think, oh, if we all just loved each other so much, then eventually people would get it and they would click and they would change. And we're all having that savior complex or wanting someone to fit into my mold. And it's like, even Moses struggled with that. And God was like, it's just start here. You're not abandoning these people forever. It's just begin cultivating the harmony and the stability where you can first in your close-knit circles, and then build it out from there, right? You don't have to bring in your number one enemy and try to force a buddy movie out of it, right? That person might have very negative intentions towards you, and you're trying to force them in because of, I don't know, like a desire to be good. But that could be, again, why do you feel like you have to perform in this way to be good, to be worthy, right? I don't think that we should reject and ostracize and, do anything separatist and divisive, right? But it's also, there's nuance. It's not all or nothing, It's like, you cannot hate, but you don't have to eat chicken with them either. This is a good expression that I knew growing up from my family, but my mom would always say, like, well, you don't have to eat chicken with them. I mean, it's like you don't have to break bread with the enemy. You can have a respectful, keep your respectful distances. But yeah, I'm gonna cut off here before I start losing it, talking in circles. All right, well, this has been it. This has been what it is. I hope that it's cohesive. I hope it doesn't sound hateful or divisive or prejudiced in any fashion. Yeah, I hope it lands. Ciao. Peace and love on earth to us all, to each other.